This is Our News, the weekend edition, and on the broadcast tonight, the Bahamas Electrical Workers Union president says no way to training foreign workers at BPL. Plus, this as the DNA leader is calling on the government to be transparent with the Bahamian people on what's really going on at BPL. And WTO accession talks to resume in Geneva next week.
Our News is brought to you by Alive.
Good evening, I'm Andrew Knowles, and thanks so much for joining us. Bahamas Electrical Workers Union President Paul Maynard says there is no way in hell current BPL staff will train foreign workers who have been brought in to help run the day-to-day functions at the power company.
Foreigners can't come in here and function because they don't know the system, and we ain't gonna teach them. That's for certain. Especially no overpaid foreigners. We ain't teaching them.
The union has made it no secret that they will not tolerate the use of foreign workers in jobs that can be handled by Bahamian employees. Earlier this week, Maynard threatened a work stoppage if the government does not immediately explain why several dozen foreign workers, who Maynard claims were engaged by Bahamas Power and Light from BWSC Denmark Power Plant, were brought in to manage Clifton Pier Power Station. Maynard claimed he was contacted by his members at the power plant in western New Providence and was advised that approximately 40 people showed up, claiming to have a management contract for Clifton Pier. He said the union was not consulted on the move and it will not be tolerated. Calls to BPL's CEO Whitney Hasty were unsuccessful up to airtime. However, newly appointed BPL chairman Dr. Donovan Moxey told the media this week that those plans were put on hold amid union uproar. Moxey said the consultants were hired to overhaul the Clifton Pier Power Plant's spare parts inventory. Maynard says so far the union is pleased with the management's response to their concerns. Well, as turmoil continues at Bahamas Power and Light, the leader of the Democratic National Alliance is asking the government to stand by its election promises of transparency and accountability so that the Bahamian people can know what's happening at the entity. He spoke with our Giorgio Bain.
Amid an investigation into turmoil engulfing Bahamas Power and Light, DNA leader Chris Mortimer is encouraging the government to address several issues, including the rising cost of electricity and frequent outages. He called on the Minister administration to consider the Clean Power Project proposed by the DNA in its Manifesto 2017 and urged that the cost of electricity is driving businesses to close their doors and residents to make some tough choices.
Reality is we have to move to alternative energy with respect to power generation in this country, which is why we talked about our Clean Power Project in terms of there are companies that was prepared, even in the run-up to the last election, prepared to deliver power to the Bahamian people at 14 cents a kilowatt hour. We're at 30-something. There were companies that were prepared. It wasn't going to cost the government anything.
Apart from the high price of fuel, Mortimer says the frequent outages and recent fires at the Clifton Pier Power Station prove that the government must move quickly into improving the infrastructure at the power station as promised.
It is affecting us in terms of the ability to deliver power on a consistent basis. And as we've seen this summer, depending on what day it is, you don't even need the rain anymore in order for the power to go off. It's going off all the time. And that's not what we signed up for when we elected the government. They promised that they would bring power, they would bring it consistently. They would try to bring down the cost of electricity for the Bahamian people.
According to Mortimer, at the end of the day, Bahamians are having to make some tough decisions between paying their electricity bills or being able to provide other necessities for their families, and that should never be.
The reality is the Bahamian people need, and the business community needs, power that is appropriately priced. And we need to move away from this cliquish behavior where they get all of the benefit on the backs of Bahamian families and Bahamian businesses. Because we cannot grow this country at 38 cents a kilowatt hour. We cannot. Families will have to make the decision on whether or not they're going to keep the power on or whether or not they can send their children to school. And that should not be a decision that Bahamian families have to make.
Reporting for Our News Weekend Edition, I'm Giorgio Bain.
All right, thanks a lot, Giorgio. Well, newly appointed chief negotiator, former State Minister for Finance, Zhivago Lang, will lead a delegation to Geneva, Switzerland next week, for a meeting to continue talks with the WTO regarding the possibility of the Bahamas joining the international organization. This will be the third meeting of the Working Party on the accession of the Bahamas to the WTO after a 6-year hiatus. Financial Services Minister Brent Simonet recently revealed that all of the necessary negotiating inputs for the Bahamas to formally recommence WTO accession negotiations have been submitted to the WTO
We're not going to sign the deal next week, if that's what people, and that really should be, we're going to, we'll come back with what was discussed, have another round of negotiations, and then, as we said, there'll be a series of negotiations leading up to December 2019, and it will be tight. It's a very tight negotiating process. And of course, we'll be very conscious of the implication for those people who are in industry to make sure we have the best deal for everyone.
A debriefing session is scheduled for Monday, October 1st to discuss the outcome of the Geneva meeting. If the accession negotiations prove to be mutually beneficial, the Bahamas plans to join the WTO between late 2019 and mid-2020. And some good news to report from police, as Amber Weish, the woman who was reported missing earlier this week, has been found. Police say the 27-year-old was found yesterday and is said to be in good health. And we will take our first break here, but still ahead tonight, the National Emergency and Management Agency gets some new equipment thanks to a significant donation. We'll tell you all about it when Our News returns.